Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. This is Joe, your host and co-founder. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. Our weekly podcast blends thought-provoking discussions on hot tech topics with solutions and anecdotes from the field. Plus, rediscover hidden gems here on the public feed, curated from our expansive archive of over 500 classic episodes. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. You can preview the latest episodes and special content there, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only episodes right in your favorite podcast app. Level up your consulting journey with the latest episodes, the most candid conversations, bonus features, and more. Join us on Patreon. We have recently wrapped up our anonymous Apple consulting survey that we sent out to our listeners and to our colleagues on Slack, and we got dozens of responses. Thank you all for participating. We're reviewing the results now, some really interesting feedback and kind of a breakdown on how different people position their services, different rates by market. And so there's a lot of interesting information in here. So if you want to listen to us discuss the results of our rates and plans survey, make sure to check us out on commandcontrolpower.com. Click on support to be taken right over to Patreon, where you can become a supporter on Patreon. You can subscribe right in your podcast feed. Also, if you participated in the rates survey, we will also be sending you some information by email if you included your email in case you're not a Patreon subscriber. But we hope you become a subscriber and a supporter on Patreon, and look forward to discussing that in an upcoming episode very soon. And now on to the show.
So Happy New Year, guys. We're all back. I thought I would kick this discussion off if there's been any changes or any implementations that you've done to your business within the last, let's say within the last 18 months that have really made a difference and you're going to continue to use them going forward. I thought I would share what I've been doing, and I know that you guys have had this business model in place for a long time. It's working so well for me, is recurring fees with clients. I used to get large amounts of money up front. Most times, if a client wanted to sign up for my service, I required them to pay in full, pay a full 12 months to have our MSP stack, Adigy and Backblaze and Malwarebytes. And I thought that was the way to go because they'd write a check. I wasn't incurring any charges from any kind of a payment gateway. And I would allocate the money. And it was easy because I'm just a one-man show. And it's a little different for you guys having employees and having to make payroll every week. I could allocate those funds a little bit better. But I would say within the last 18 months to 24 months, I've switched over to just having my clients charge on their credit card every month. Square is the payment gateway that I'm using. They take a little piece of my action there. But I can't tell you how much better things are from a fiscal standpoint for me, having that money flowing in on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. It puts me more at ease because I'm not as worried about, where's the next job coming from? It's the light week. I've only got 3 jobs this week. That's okay. But now I'm just put at ease by the regular recurrence of funds that are coming in. I think it's just a great thing for all of our listeners, if you're out there and you're running your businesses and you're not using this type of model, I think you should take a serious look at possibly doing that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think even if you're the best person to save money and pass out that money throughout the year, let's say, it's still very concerning when that large chunk comes in. It's great. And then when it starts to dissipate, you get this worried feeling on your mind. That changed my mindset as well into just feeling more calm about next month and feeling like, all right, this is always going to come in, barring some crazy catastrophe from a customer. This is going to come in next month and the month after that. So It definitely sets your mind at ease. Even if you have a slow day, actually, it makes a great slow day because you're like, I still got the money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great feeling for sure. When you don't feel super busy and maybe you're even focused on some admin work or non-billable stuff and just maybe even calling clients, just free, quick calls and things. And as you're going down your list, you're not doing anything where you're invoicing, but the money hits the bank account. It is a great feeling. I have two things to say about that. I think it's a great tip, Jerry, and I'm glad that's working for you. About 10 years ago, a friend of mine and now client also, but mentioned how most businesses struggle because of cash flow. And a lot of times you hear these stories of most businesses don't last 5 years, that kind of thing. And what ends up happening is you start out and you put up your shingle, right? You put up your business card, you put up your flyer, and maybe you just get a few clients here and there, and you can get started, you ease into it. There's not a lot of overhead. But pretty soon there's more overhead. There's more costs. Like you said, maybe you have a staff down the road and you're making payroll. Maybe you have an office like I used to have, and maybe you just have more expenses. Now everybody needs a new computer and there's another expense hitting your account. So your expenses grow with the business growth. It scales up accordingly. And sometimes you hit those inflection points where it goes up faster than your income is going up. And certainly the expenses are there one way or another every single month, like you mentioned, payroll and other monthly expenses. If you're still waiting 30 days to get paid, or maybe some clients want to take longer than that, that doesn't scale very well. So this client and friend of mine illustrated this for me, describing how this graph of your expenses goes up and your income goes up too. But if you're waiting on getting paid, you have a real problem. And so the recurring revenue totally solves that problem. It just smooths out the cash flow. And that works a lot of times for clients too. They're happy with predictable expenses. So that's a great tip.
My other share for 2023, and this is something that I've been doing for a while, but I actually upgraded it, is it used to be the thing to run a headless Mac Mini server in your office, and you'd use it for various items. I'm actually still doing that, but it's not doing a server function. All it's doing is filtering my junk email. And I don't know about you guys, but I wonder about this all the time. Like, how do normal people deal with all the volumes of junk email that they have? I was able to take my Mac Mini and get an M2 really inexpensively on MacAdmins Slack. There's a for sale channel. And in there, one of the subscribers was selling some Mac Mini 2023s. I got a Mac Mini 2023, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 250 gig hard drive, M2. And that is filtering all my email, my personal and my business email. And it runs all the time. And I have to go in there and obviously prune some of the stuff that ends up in the junk folder. I use SpamSieve to filter my email, and that does a great job. But how do you guys do it? I couldn't live without this thing on my network.
So you're really getting that much junk that the basic filters that exist, because I do get some that come through, but 365 filters and then the mail platform as well do a pretty decent job, but it's just pummeling through all of that.
Yeah, it's not a ridiculous amount, but nothing in my inbox lands there that isn't relevant to me. I just don't want to see spam in my inbox. And so this is the way I deal with it.
That's pretty good.
And I have it.
I'm tempted to do something about it myself on your recommendation here, because my biggest culprit account is believe it or not, my iCloud account. I'm sure no one is surprised by this, because Apple just doesn't have the same. They certainly have the scale. I guess they don't quite have the same scale as free Gmail. Free Gmail has probably billions of users, certainly like hundreds of millions. And I think Gmail also has a lot of lead time on the machine learning game and other ways of detecting junk mail. So they can use that scale and leverage that expertise to probably keep even free Gmail accounts free of spam, most spam. And that's certainly my experience there. I get over the course of a month, maybe a dozen, maybe 24 junk messages that end up in junk. And so typically they're not even in the inbox, they're just in junk. And I just go through it and I clean it up. But my me.com over the same period of time is right now I'm looking at 730 junk messages. And I don't think I've had this account for very long, not longer than my Gmail, that's for sure. And I don't really post it online or publicly advertise it. So I don't know why I'm attracting so much junk mail. But I think it's just because Apple's filter is not as good. And so what I'll do is I'll sort it by from address. And then a lot of times there's lots of duplicates. Like I've got a dozen messages of various versions of 2023 free scores, like free credit scores. And that's a scam. And then I have AARP, like all sorted together, fake AARP messages.
That's not a scam for me. I'm almost there.
I'm not quite there yet. So it's definitely a scam for me. Ace Hardware, ADT. These are like the ones I typically see. And then that's just the A's. I've got to scroll way down here. And what I'll do is I'll just skim through it. If I see one that looks like it's not junk, I click it and I move it to the inbox and I deal with it later, and leaving the rest of the junk in place. And then I just go through and empty, erase junk mail. So that's my way of handling it. For my business account, I employ an operations manager who deals with my email as part of her job. And she goes through, thankfully, cleaning out my company junk mail. I wish she could do that for my personal stuff too, but.
So it's possible you're getting as much junk email as I am. You're just not seeing it because you have a business associate.
I do. Well, when she's off, I do see the junk come in, and it's not crazy excessive even for the business account, there's probably various places where that account is out there online and I don't get crazy mail. And that's hosted by Google also. So I host my company email on Google Workspace, and I benefit from their junk filtering as well. It's not perfect, but I think it does free up a lot of it. Where do you host your email, Jerry? That's another side of it.
Microsoft for the business. And then I have a Gmail account, paid Gmail account. And I do have an iCloud account. So I would say over the course of one day, I'm probably seeing from 3 accounts, I'm probably seeing a total of maybe 30 junk emails a day.
Yeah,
does that sound excessive?
Yeah, that would be annoying. I would agree. I don't get that many in my business account. Like I said, I see them accumulate maybe a few per day.
How about you, Sam?
Duty's off.
I get a hefty amount, but they get filtered out pretty well. So I guess like for work, I get a few in there. And sometimes I think an issue I have, a couple of clients were trying to work on their score online because one of them ended up in a blacklist. So their messages are always going to spam. But it's not terrible for me. There are a couple that I've tried to get rid of and create rules for, and they still show up somehow. So that's a little frustrating, but nothing that caused me to get a second device for this purpose. At least not yet.
Jerry, would you say this made a very material difference? Because this is, I guess, the topic at hand, right? This sounds like it made a pretty big difference for you not to see that stuff. So spam sieve like just takes it out of commission, like it just deletes it, or?
No, it'll put it in a aggregated junk folder that I'll be able to look through very quickly. So I'll do that on the server, and then I'll green light the stuff that I want to keep. I was locked out of upgrading to Sonoma on my Mac Mini that I had in service because it was an older model that couldn't be upgraded. I guess that's the big difference, is that I have a little bit of a faster headless Mac. I also run my home automation server on that, and it sounds like I've got some big bells and whistles going on here, but that's not, it's not very sophisticated. I use an open source tool called Scripted, and that actually works with Apple Home. So a few things, a few lights, a few cameras.
I can certainly relate to this. I used to have a Mac Mini in my old condo, and mostly for home automation. I think I was probably running Carrio Mail server on there, if I'm being honest, at one point. And it's just like fun to have a headless machine that's always on, that's just doing stuff like that for you. I've certainly migrated away from that. One of my biggest changes is having less infrastructure overall. But it's amazing how quickly this stuff proliferates. I've got a Synology sitting here in my home office, mainly for time machine backup, for 2 computers, and also to run. At one point I was running Synology CMS, and that was like a decent way to deal with like notifications from client Synologies, running that, hosting that myself. At some point I'll talk about using Active Insight from Synology instead of that. Because again, I'm a fan of moving in the other direction, like less infrastructure, less hardware, fewer little boxes I need to maintain. Because I would ask you also about your Mac Mini. So what's your workflow? Just whenever you think of it, connect remotely, do some updates, and just give it a good fresh restart, or do you have any kind of maintenance plan for that?
Nothing that sophisticated. I'm running Audio Hijack on there, and my daughter, who is off to college this year, she's doing a 1-hour streaming radio show every week, and you have to tune in at that exact time because none of this is available to time shift and listen to later. So I've been having Audio Hijack pick up her shows and record them for me so I could listen to them at a later time. So
That's
little
cool.
things like that, little projects. Sometimes I use it to manage my Plex server, music server, those sorts of things. Just another landing site to go to run tasks in the background if I have to.
You're tempting me now. I miss that a little bit, playing with home automation. I've done a little bit of that with the Home app and Philips Hue. So you can buy some light bulbs, plug them in.
Yeah, me too.
It's fun. They have different colored light bulbs. So I have some artwork on the wall that I can highlight in different colors. And there's different, with the Philips Hue app, you can program it to change colors and have several lights in the same room, do a wash of color that's all in the same palette. It's fun stuff. And then in the Home app, what you can do is set basic automations. Like they have some programmed ones for at a certain time or whatever, or they can just run at sunrise or at sunset. So I set up some toward the, middle to end of last year, and they will, at sunrise, turn on one of my lamps to a low level so that when I get up, I have some light. Of course, depending on the time of the year, I might get up before or after sunrise. So it's not perfect, but it's a fun little thing to just have this lamp turn on with just enough to see as I get up if it's just still dark out, and start playing music. And so I have a few HomePods, one at my desk and one in the kitchen. I have those two paired together in this automation to play some very quiet classical music. So when the sun rises, I get this little lamp that turns on to a dim level and very quiet classical music. And then at 8:15, another automation runs and it plays slightly louder, still quiet background music, but focus music. So there's a playlist that I like. I mentioned in a show a few months ago, several playlists, but one of them is, I think it's just called Focus, something like that. There's a bunch of
one.
Yeah, Headspace was cool. There's a few kind of in I think it's Apple Music Focus genre. But anyway, yeah, you can experiment with different playlists and have that play automatically. So I find that fun because a lot of times it's just me here working from home remotely, and having a little background music is nice. And then at sunset, I have different classical station go on, a relaxing classical station. So I enjoy the fact that I know what time sunset is based on when this music quietly changes in the background. And it's fun. And that's all just with built-in stuff. So I don't need to run a Mac Mini or anything like that. It's just built into, in this case, my home controller is one of my HomePods, I think, or maybe it's my Apple TV. So that's the device that just manages this stuff. You can also do things once you set up automations in the Home app. You can add a shortcut to your iPhone. I found myself every day saying, I want to play this Focus playlist at this time, or I want to change to that Headspace playlist or whatever. So I made shortcuts on my iPhone to do that stuff so that I don't have to go into the music app, select control other devices, select my kitchen and home office HomePods, and then find the playlist and press play and do all those steps and hope I didn't accidentally stop the podcast that I'm listening to or mess it up and start playing the podcast through my home office HomePod. It's just a lot of little annoying fiddly things. You just tap a button on your iPhone and now it plays the playlist you want through the two HomePods you want in sync. So it's fun to play with the home automation stuff, even that's just built in without having to necessarily run a server.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're leaning away now from, because at first you were talking to Jerry, hey, you're making me jealous. I want a server again. And then by the end of this conversation, it's nice not having one. So It all depends on where you're rolling. But I definitely agree. I got some minor home automations going also with Philips Hue. Like I set up, I like your sunrise thing, but what we did is, depending on the time we get up in the morning, we have it set to a low, the kitchen lights to set to like a low hue, and Jen walks in the kitchen and just says, hey, Siri, good morning. Oh, shoot. I just did it. But, and she just walks in and it sets the lights to her level based on when she woke up. We also had some issues. My neighbor's my electrician, who was great, but we had some issues with the lights when we rebuilt our house, and where our spotlights were no longer working by the switches, because there were these fancy switches at the time that turned out to be not so fancy. And I just opted to go to Philips and just buy a whole bunch of spotlights. And I had my neighbor put them all up. And now the only way we control those lights is by Siri, because the switches actually don't even work anymore on them. But it's easy. We just tell Siri how to turn them on. And it's the little stuff like that I think I like. I'd love to get into more advanced stuff, but I just haven't as of yet. Like the cool shades and things that are out there that can be automated. That always seems like fascinating to me, but I've never used it.
Yeah, it's definitely a slippery slope. You can go down that road for a while. I did all kinds of stuff with AppleScript way back in the day. Before the days of Philips Hue, I had Insteon. Insteon was the platform, and that replaced X10, which is even older. And these were switches and lights and all that kind of stuff. And originally it would just communicate through the home wiring, and then it would use also local wireless technology, not Wi-Fi, but something else. And then you'd have a little Mac Mini running in this case, it was the Indigo software that would respond. The Indigo software would see you press the button to turn on the entry light, and then it would see that somebody hit that button and maybe also know that there was no motion in any of the motion detectors in such an amount of time. So probably we just got home. Therefore, run this AppleScript. And the AppleScript would check the calendar and recap different events and then read you, these are your upcoming appointments. So left a voicemail or whatever, because it would also check your email. So I played with different stuff like that. And it would be really cool as a demo when you get it all tuned perfectly and you'd press a thing and you can like wow people that you have this cool system. But it doesn't really work reliably. It's like any kind of computer thing where it just takes regular tweaking and adjusting and maintaining. And so that's what I like about the first party solution, is that it's still not perfect. You can't do a lot, but therefore you also don't try to do too much. And so the stuff you can do is generally more reliable than doing it all manually and stuff back in the day.
Yeah. So I think you guys have been talking about your lighting just because you're stalling and you're trying to think of something.
Well, you never asked us,
really...
what we leaned into this year.
All right, Joe and Sam, tell me about your Mac Mini servers and your spam filters and stuff.
I don't have one.
Sam first. Yeah, Sam, you got anything for last year, this year?
Yeah, I don't know what year it is anymore. But yeah, I think if I had to say anything, I would say leaning, and it's funny because I thought about this before this conversation, meaning about the lights, but leaning into automation, but on the computer side. I was thinking about what's made my life easier. And one of the biggest things that we've been doing a heck of a lot of is using really great tools that go along with an MDM solution to automate the workflow of a setup of a new computer. So not just, yes, you're connected to remote management and you got some apps, but walking the user through the process and saying, hey, we're setting this up for you now. Microsoft Office is being installed, and check your doc and all this other stuff. And then we couple that with a guide, a PDF guide that we write up for them. And it's a little bit of work on the front end, but man, as some of the clients have hired new employees, we're doing nothing at the start of their new employee setup, unless someone has a question, something didn't go right, or I'm not sure where to find something. But we've tried to account for all these little pieces of what would a user look for? What might they be confused about? How would they set up their SharePoint and all this other stuff? So I think we've been leaning into that hard, especially this last quarter, and it's done wonders to ease up on our tickets for stuff like that. And I'm really thankful for it.
That's really cool. I'm curious most of all about the scale of something like that. So where would you say it makes sense to invest the time and effort into setting up some of these workflows? You probably have to buy a tool or use something that's open source or whatever, free open source, that still requires a lot of time investment in learning it and configuring it. So is there a number like that's a sweet spot above 10 users at a client or 20 or 30?
I'll say this. I would agree with you normally. And if I have to put in this effort, then I want this to be worth the payoff. But I'll say two things. One is, once you learn it the first time, it's cookie cutter. You can change it per client and just change the title and change the name of the company and some of the apps that you want to deploy. So I actually had to buckle down one night because I needed it. I was busy. I didn't have time and I needed it on the fly. And there's an amazing tool called Set Up Your Mac by Dan Snelson. We'll put this link in the show notes. And it's free to use. It's based on Swift Dialog. It's a hell of a long, big script, which scared the crap out of me when I first saw it.
Yeah.
But like all good things, another great person, someone that goes by the name of Big Rat on GitHub, funny name, but excellent person, developed SYM Editor, I think it's called. And it's a GUI tool that you pick all your choices for Set Up Your Mac, and it spits out the script for you. This is incredible. So those two things combined is what turned me around. And now I'll even say for 5-10 users, because it won't take me very long anymore to get it done. I do have to have the apps ready on the back end, but It's really amazing. And the customized screens and everything that you can see and show the user and tell them what to do next. It's changed things. And we had some really positive feedback from our customers about it.
I love the attention to detail there on being able to have different screens that put your brand in front of the client, or even just it's an experience that they're not used to seeing. They've probably set up a Mac before and they can see there's something custom happening in this case. That's because they're using you for support, especially if you can get that in front of one of the points of contact or decision makers in the company. They see that level of management that you have going on. And it certainly looks more professional than, okay, we need to schedule calls with each person. We just hired 5 people. We need to talk to each of them. That's not efficient at that point, and they realize that. So yeah, it's a really nice tip. So Set Up Your Mac is the main software there.
Yes, and the SYM assistant tool, I'll put both of those in the show notes.
Big Rat.
SYM Helper by Big Rat. Yeah.
Nice. Is his branding on the setup screens? Big Rat in the corner?
No.
Copyright Big Rat? No. Okay.
Little cartoon rat with a big belly running across the screen.
That's right.
With a beer. A beer.
Yeah.
You leave my Big Rat alone. Love that guy.
Do you think that vendors, obviously you're mentioning this is open source and it's free. Do you think vendors will pick this up and it'll be built into more MSP products in the future?
Maybe. The big one before this was DEP Notify, which I also played with. It was pretty good for the time, but it stopped being developed. Like all things, I think Joe was alluding to this. It's like open source has that danger that it could be like, I did this for free, I'm done now. There is that danger, of course, and that's what happened to DEP Notify, I think. But I don't know if this will be picked up. I know like some other solutions, the MDM solutions are incorporating their own features like this. So maybe there won't be as much of a need in the future. But for now, it certainly serves a purpose.
It's amazing to me just how much room we have to grow with mobile device management, broadly speaking. Some wins for me from last year were learning how to deploy Adobe apps remotely. I've done this before, like packaging smart software in Adigy, including the Adobe apps, but getting a handle more on that workflow and making it like reliable and repeatable, but also managing updates as part of that. So like deploying the app and managing the updates, both for Adobe apps and then for some of the other Connect fonts, for example, for managing fonts, things like that. So that was interesting and useful to be able to do that. And I also realized there's small missing pieces in some of this stuff. You can deploy updates to your Adobe software. The user has the 2023 version sitting there in their dock and they're working away. And then you can, when scheduled, click a few buttons and deploy the 2024 apps to all of your clients, all of the users at that client. So that's great. Now they have the latest version, but hiding in their applications folder alongside the old versions. And the old versions are the ones that are still in the dock. So now a lot of times they still have those opening because they're like reopening when they restart their computer or whatever because they were left open. And now you've got the new one there that's just in the recent section of the dock, but not like an icon that's replacing the original. Shouldn't Adobe handle that, or better yet, Apple? Hey, I don't know. Maybe you could ask the user. There's already enough prompts, but would you like to replace the icons with these, or just do it automatically, or give me the like checkbox to do it? Make that built in. And just managing the dock in general, we don't really have a good way to do that. We can enforce the dock that we want. Every user has the dock look like this. That's the option we have. They can't change it. But that's not what we want, actually. That's maybe if you're managing 1,000 users of regimented setup and you enforce like stuff like that.
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like where you want every single thing to be set up the same, fine. But like most users that we manage at the scale, like probably most of our colleagues work at, clearly the user needs to have control over their dock. So we just don't have tools. We have to use a third-party tool, right? Isn't it like DocuTil or whatever to manage that?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's ways of doing it, but why do we have to learn some third-party tool like that just to be able to manage the dock, for example, like when we're deploying updates? I think there's a lot of room for vendors. I'm hoping Adigy will continue to incorporate stuff like this into their platform. Maybe they can reinvent it. Maybe they can give you some easy onboarding of that, or make it a more, easily deployable in its open source form, something like that. The tools are there to incorporate this stuff into these platforms, but yeah, it does take work to do it. And I'm just surprised that we're still having this conversation about some of these things with managing Macs in this way, when Apple's not a young company.
You got a point. I think we'd have to take the time to learn those tools, like you said, but it'd be great if Adobe 2024 is now installed and the dock refreshes and those apps are now the default apps. That would be pretty cool to do something like that via MDM, built-in MDM.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there could just be, maybe the answer is DocUtil and just do that, but Apple could notice that you have old versions in the dock and automatically refresh them, something like that. Or the vendors themselves would have to do it. What I'm driving at also is the conversation about updates and managing updates, which again, I can't believe we're still having this conversation. We went from using Nudge plus the Apple script open to more info by previous guest Ross Matsuda. And I've spoken at length about how those work really well for us. And also in the meantime, I've made a post on our Command Control Power site to show my success with MDM system updates, where despite the fact that Apple says you need to either be enrolled using automated device enrollment, or you need to go into the recovery partition or recovery OS and change to reduced security, you don't need to do those things in my experience. User enrolled Macs that do not have reduced security, that still have full security, handle MDM system updates just fine. So I've used that in Adigy to basically replace the Nudge and AppleScript workflow to continue to notify users and remind them and take them through the steps of installing updates manually to just do it through MDM. I'm hoping we're almost at the point where this is no longer a conversation we have to regularly have, but that took quite a while to get to the point where updates are reliably done, because that's just a basic feature that we all need to be able to get a handle on. And I do feel like as of the end of last year and beginning of this year, I finally have a handle on system updates now using MDM that works reliably and I can use to basically just keep my fleet of client Macs up to date.
But you put hours and hours of work, Joe, into that. It would have come easy for you. I'm not saying that the work was hard, but you put tons and tons of time.
Yeah. So the thing about it was Adigy released this feature maybe a year ago or more. I can't remember when they started supporting MDM system updates. It's relatively new to MDM in general, as of a couple of two or three OS versions ago. And shortly thereafter, Adigy released this in their software. Apple always indicated that these were supported for automated device enrollment and or reduced security. So for most of my clients, because they're not using automated device enrollment, ADE, and we're not walking end users through reduced security for the reasons we've mentioned in the past. I just don't like the conversation that would be prompted by telling somebody to reduce their security when we're trying to do the opposite. It's a nuanced and subtle conversation to have with some of the types of clients. So we just have avoided that. And I haven't bothered to work with MDM system updates. But because I forget, I guess I read something in Slack on the Adigy channel where some people were having success with using that feature, despite, again, not reducing the security and not being ADE enrolled. And so I tried it. And so a lot of the time that you're alluding to was like the initial testing, finally putting some Macs through their paces. And it works fine for Intel Macs, which I think is expected, but it was the Apple Silicon Macs that also worked fine. That was a surprise. And I didn't believe it at first, and I did some extra testing and further testing on clients and so on. So that after noticing that this all works pretty well, and I have an understanding of what MDM system updates means, I thought we need now to just set up some policies and also some notifications for users. So I did some scripting and based my scripts on some others that I found and so on, and created kind of a workflow. That's what I posted about was, hey, this works. Here's how to use it. And here's some ways you can notify users for things that might cause it not to work. It's a laptop and it's not plugged into power, or they don't have enough free space, for two examples. And then some steps to use those scripts in combination with the scheduled MDM updates. And yeah, just leveraging that to change the workflow away from Nudge, because the issue with Nudge is that it can't click the more info button using AppleScript anymore. Therefore, it can't bypass the Sonoma upgrade when you're running something prior to Sonoma. And also, you can no longer defer the Sonoma upgrade past Christmas Day. So that was a fun deadline to work around. So we ended up just pulling our nudge workflow right before the holidays because I didn't want these calls like on Christmas Day or the week after saying, I saw your update prompt and you told me to do it, or they think I told them to do it. I upgraded to Sonoma. Now I have questions or something doesn't work or whatever. So we just stopped prompting people like right before the holidays. And I thought, I hope I can just replace this whole kludge of a workflow with just the built-in MDM system updates. And so it's been working. So yeah, that's been my big win like toward the end of last year.
I did the same thing as you, Joe. I had to remove prompting from a lot of my customers because it was just mayhem or confusion. So to avoid that, I made some mistakes by letting it go on a couple customers, and then to avoid it for other customers, you know what? I'm just proactively stopping it because there's no good way to handle that. So
yep,
I feel your pain there.
You've deactivated Nudge completely. Have you removed it from Adigy completely?
In one client instance, we did remove it completely. So it really depends on if we plan on deploying it back out again.
Yeah, what I did was, because I had that insight too at the 11th hour thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do in this scenario, because I let it expire ahead of the deadline so I'd see what happens in certain cases. This is not good. What's happening is now Sonoma is showing up. So now when Nudge goes and calls the Apple script to open software update and in theory show the update, not Sonoma upgrade, instead now it's in some cases, it's certainly showing the Sonoma upgrade. And in other cases, it was launching the Sonoma upgrade. So my prompt that was supposed to just update was launching the Sonoma upgrade. This is not good. So I was trying every scenario I could, trying to tweak the Apple script, whatever, ultimately realizing, yeah, I could just pull this. I could just stop this from prompting at all. And at least, yeah, I can't stop them from upgrading necessarily, but at least I'm not going to cause them to upgrade. And so I did that. And the way that I do that is I just pull the MDM configuration profile for Nudge. So when Nudge, even with the launch agent built in to Nudge will launch the Nudge app by default, I guess, every hour, depending on how you have it configured. And if the Nudge app launches and there's no configuration profile present on the machine, it will just quit immediately. And it's pretty silent. I don't think they see an icon, or I don't think it takes focus or anything like that. So they won't even notice it. And so basically to stop the prompt, I just pull the MDM profile. I take it out of the policy. Of course, I still get calls sometimes after doing that. And the reason is that the user hasn't restarted in 30 days or whatever. And so MDM is not working or working intermittently. So their profile is still on the machine. And now it's 4 days past the deadline that no one should have hit because they pulled the profile. This client still has the profile because MDM stopped working. So the answer is restart.
My MDM profile from all my computers while you guys are talking.
That's you go.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you still had it after all. I guess you don't care as much because do you encourage clients to upgrade to Sonoma? Don't worry about it, or?
I haven't had that many calls. So maybe my clients are just so like deer in the headlights. So maybe I'm lucky.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Sometimes you have those upgrade situations where you didn't even know there was an incompatibility. Someone used a tool that you weren't aware of. I actually did have that happen to me now that I think about it with AWS VPN, which is a tool for Amazon VPN clients that I rarely use. I have a couple of people that use it, but we started to let a client upgrade to Sonoma because they didn't seem to have any non-standard tools. And a few people use AWS VPN, so I didn't catch it. And right away, we got a call that as soon as they upgraded to Sonoma, they clicked on the AWS VPN and it would just bounce in the dock and stop. And so we tried everything, complete uninstall, reinstall, and looking at Amazon's site, they actually say this version is supported up until, and of course, Sonoma's not on the list. So I was like, oh boy, that's a problem because first of all, I didn't catch it. And now we got people that might need it. So anyway, this kind of sat on the shelf for a while. We couldn't figure it out. There was no rhyme or reason. I didn't know why it wouldn't work. We did complete fresh uninstall, reinstall. Fast forward to a few weeks later, someone had a similar issue, except they were not on Sonoma. So I was like, oh no. So I got in remotely. I've seen this, but I don't know how to fix it. So bear with me. And I'm just putting this out there because it's still a problem and in case anyone else runs into it. But so what I ended up finding out, just to bring this to a close, is inside each user's home directory is a folder called AWS client hidden in a .config folder. And it has a couple of subdirectories that I guess Amazon or AWS VPN expects to see, even if it doesn't use them. And if it doesn't see them, it will just not launch. So there's this folder called NetSparkle Updater, which I guess manages the updates potentially. And I copied my folder into this other user's same location, and boom, it launched. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. It wasn't even a resource being used by the app.
Wow.
I packaged up that folder using a packaging tool, and then I put it in self-service called Fix VPN.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, everybody just click Fix VPN and your problems are solved. And it was really cool. That's amazing. My problem's fixed now. So I'm like, great.
They probably are wondering, can you fix all my problems?
I know. It's like a magic button.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I haven't played much with self-service, but I really like that idea of giving people the tools to like do some of that stuff, even if it's, because in all seriousness, fix my email. Sometimes the email issues we see are, it's not finding search results, just rebuild Spotlight. So like you could make a fix my search button to just rebuild. Of course, then people just click it and keep clicking it and go back and click it again. And I don't know if that's going to be good. But yeah, that's a really cool solution though. And a good example of why at least we just want to be involved. I hate to come off like I'm discouraging all my clients, don't upgrade to Sonoma, it's terrible. I'm definitely not like that curmudgeon late adopter, as much as I sound like a late adopter sometimes. I'm not discouraging people. We want them to include us, involve us in that step. We don't want the user to just say, I want to upgrade to Sonoma before we're ready to recommend it. Sometimes we know that there are specific issues and that's why we're deferring it or blocking it. Other times we just say, okay, are you ready to upgrade everyone? Let's plan that and do that. And that might be, in theory, maybe a self-service thing, or usually for us, it would be a scheduled time where we deploy the updates or the upgrade using Adigy to all the clients. And it's more like we've allocated time for being available if there are issues that people need help with, and to actually just handle it for them. So they're not like spending half their workday downloading and installing that.
Yeah. You find that, I think there's that balance that I'm trying to find where I'm like, not that I don't want to take a call, but it's, if I can find a way to mass produce this, then I don't have to take the call. And I think they're fine. A lot of people are fine not reaching out to us if they have an answer. So it also depends on the client, as always. Some people like to pick up that phone and have that friendly voice to talk to, which I'm cool with too.
Yeah. For me, there's a couple clients who just do not respond to email. I don't take it personally. They are overwhelmed or just that's not their style. And if I call them, I will get them on the phone pretty quickly and get those questions answered. So some people, it's just the way they work. They just want to have that relationship. And sometimes the relationship is by phone. Sometimes the relationship can just be by tickets in your ticketing system or email communications or whatever. But yeah, it does vary based on the client. I guess for me, the last kind of big win for last year going into this year is that right at the end of the year, December 1st, we closed our office. We no longer have a physical presence. We're all remote and on-site. And so it was a long time coming. We talked about it on the show a little bit, I think more on the Patreon episodes, a little bit of the behind the scenes process there. There's probably more follow-up at some point. But yeah, that was just a big win to get through that. It took 5 trips home, 5 trips back to Connecticut specifically to work on closing the office. And I think a few trips even back in 2022, getting that started. So it's been a process, but it involved selling and refurbishing and getting rid of our Mac museum, old hardware that we had kept working or just put on display, selling some old office equipment, including working technology, parts and tools and all kinds of things, all on eBay pretty much. And finally got to send the photos to the landlord saying, okay, we're out. That was a great feeling. And then also to get the security deposit back was a really nice thing. Also,
CCP party.
Yeah, exactly. After many years, just like them holding that, it's nice to get it back when I did a good job closing the office and it all was left clean and ready to reoccupy. Yeah, that was a big win from last year. So I'm very happy with that. And it's leading to a lot more simplicity this year, which is great.
And how do your employees feel about that?
They're good. Tim was in the office as like a remote work station, basically. We hadn't been doing labor there for a while, even in the rare occasions where people, I need a new battery in my MacBook Air, or my screen's broken, or whatever, stuff that we could have done. We had just stopped doing that over the course of the last year or so, just whittled down the types of things we did, and also to see where the problems might be, if any, like data recovery. We used to do that, a lot of data recovery for a while, but not so much anymore. And now, instead of taking on that project, we recommend data savers. So Tim hasn't really had a need to be in the physical office in quite a while.
Drive savers.
I use data savers, but yeah, drive savers also.
Wait a minute, who's data savers?
Datasaversllc.com.
And I'm wondering if with Joe's office closing, are they taking longer lunch break now, Sam? What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Judy has been remote for a while already, so she wasn't even in the office. There was no change for her. Tim, like I said, would go into the office in between appointments or just to work remotely. He's now working from his home office and then going on site. We had a recovery, speaking of data recovery, we had a client who says, I want to get a new laptop to replace my laptop. Okay, that's all straightforward. I also have this, 15-year-old iMac. I'm like, oh, if it's really 15 years, I don't know what I'm going to find here. And he wants all the photos from it. And they're not anywhere else. There's just photos that he never had recovered. He's like an old occasional client like that we hadn't heard from in years. And so, yeah, he has this old iMac. And I was thinking this would have been obviously something we would do in our office, drop it off, or we pick it up or whatever. And then we just let it run. It could take a while. We might need to rerun the recovery. We might need to take the drive out and put it into an enclosure, this kind of thing. So instead, we're just going to do it on site. So I said we charge for the on-site visit. We have a 2-hour minimum. We will make sure the computer can start up to our recovery partition, or possibly just put it in FireWire target disk mode and connect it to the new Mac at that point, and just try the recovery in his space there. And if it's not successful, or if we find that we don't even want to attempt it further because it's failing or whatever, we would recommend our data recovery partner, and there'd still be a charge for the on-site. We'll probably knock that down a little bit. But yeah, we've found ways to work around just not having an office.
I'm still stuck on the data savers. I've never heard of these guys before.
I haven't recommended them yet. They're great. Yeah, datasaversllc.com. I think they do the same, in theory, the same type of clean room recovery as drive savers, but they're just more reasonably priced. And they can also do... Yeah. I'm not quite sure what their infrastructure is like, but no, they do also have different levels of data recoveries. If you just send them a drive and they just need to take it out of the enclosure that it's in and put it in a different one, and it's easy, that's whatever, I don't know what they call it, level 1 or level 2. And if it's a failing drive and they need to swap a circuit board or whatever other kinds of things they do, obviously that's priced accordingly. But yeah, they've been good, and they have a partner program similar to Drive Savers, and yeah, I'd recommend them.
So they do have an affiliate.
They do. Yeah. You refer a client to them. They use your referral code, and you get a check from these guys if the client moves ahead with the recovery.
Very nice.
Yep.
I'm going to put a link in the chat, and you guys tell me what you think.
Oh, God. Who is this? Did you just make a referral page to Drive Savers as we spoke here? Or is this already
not as we spoke, no.
Okay.
This is a landing page just for your listeners to clue you in. I bought the domain connecticutharddrive.com. And this was actually Drive Savers came after me and said, it'd be really good if you did something like this so you can get more referrals. So I built a page using Squarespace, and it's all Drive Saver links.
Look at you, man.
Serving all of Connecticut. Yeah, I love
you
that.
are the website mogul.
Yeah. You never know. You'll find out on an episode of Command Control Power. Photos inside Jerry's barn I can see here, it looks like. Or is this a stock photo?
These are all stock photos.
Okay.
I wish my place looked like that.
Yeah.
But click on one of those links there to
click for discount. Is that what I want to do?
Yeah, click on
that. I see what you're trying to do here. Is this a show?
This could be the show.
No, it's even got your discount code embedded right on drivesaversdatarecovery.com. Okay.
There you go. So anyone listening, you want to just pick up a little extra cash on the side. This actually, to be honest with you, I went through a lot of effort to make this happen, and the checks are not rolling in.
No?
I can tell you that. No.
I like these ideas. Maybe we can put some intentions on 2024 here, but I have backblazemac.com. following your daylightmac.com playbook, and it's a referral to my Backblaze affiliate link.
I'm going there right now. I'm going to buy some Backblaze.
Send your clients, backblazemac.com. Maybe I shouldn't send that too far and wide.
It's just a redirect, isn't it?
It's just a redirect. Yep. It's not a landing page.
Nice.
And
if I click get started, you make a little spiff off of
That's right. Yeah, please do. Get started. Get started on
Even
that.
just by clicking the link?
So my link just is like a redirect to the Backblaze page with my affiliate.
And they don't have to fulfill a purchase.
No, not just from clicking. They have to purchase.
Wait a second. I'm missing out on big money here.
yeah. Just click. I just sit there clicking it all day long. That's how I make my millions here. Yeah. Maybe I should get coloradoharddrive.com. Is that available? coharddrive.com.
I just bought it.
Oh, man. No, it's fun. Like these are the tools we use, right? 1Password as another one. Malwarebytes. Like they all have affiliate programs, or you can get signed up through Partnerize, or what are the other ones?
Junction.
Right. Can I be
an
an affiliate of your affiliate program? Do I get a little cut on that?
That's a good resource for me. Daylightmac.com.
That's cool, man. I'm glad that's working so well for you. But yeah, I've thought of doing it with some of these other ones too, and just offering a little bit of advice, like here's how we recommend dealing with password management, and here's a link to 1Password. Or maybe it's about overall security. There's a link to 1Password for password management. There's a link to Backblaze to protect your data, and there's a link to
Mac.
Oh, sure. You can include that one, or Malwarebytes, because I'm trying to use what I have, like affiliate links for. But I should get on that. That should be one of my goals this year. To just get a little passive income from something like that. What about you, Sam? What are your goals this year?
That's simple. I just want to retire.
Who's going to buy me and Jerry out then if you retire?
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple